Fu Jing got dead drunk on the day he was in theft as a marquis again. His drinking companions asked him, "You're engaged to the daughter of the Duke of Wei. What about Miss Li?" He let out a soft snort. "Someone of her market background, how could she be worthy of entering my marquis's mansion?" The companion pressed again. "Aren't you afraid she'll make a scene?" Fu Jing sneered. "If she doesn't know her place, I have plenty of ways to deal with her." But before long, he was kneeling in front of me, crying and begging for another chance. "What ways do you plan to use to deal with me, Marquis Fu?" I put away the congratulatory gift I had prepared for him, pushed the door open and entered, asking with a half-smile. Fu Jing's face froze for a moment, most of his drunkenness fading away. He stared at me without the slightest trace of guilt. "Since you've heard everything, I'll just speak plainly. I'm going to marry Song Qingyao, the legitimate daughter of the Duke of Wei's mansion. I won't come here to see you again. I'll give you 1,000 taels of silver as compensation. Shen Li, let's part on good terms. Don't pester me." I nodded faintly and said, "Since you've said so, I really shouldn't pester you anymore. But isn't 1,000 taels a bit too little?" His eyes suddenly widened. 1,000 taels is still too little. Shen Li, don't be too greedy. I smiled and shouted outside the door, "Bring the account books and abacus." Soon, a waiter brought them over. 3 years ago, you collapsed at my door covered in injuries, begging me to save you. You stayed in my inn for 2 months. The medical fees plus accommodation and meals total 500 taels. Over these 3 years, you've borrowed a total of 500 taels of silver from me. Oh, and over the years, you've brought friends here to eat and drink from time to time, always putting it on account and never paying. I'll round it down to 5,000 taels. And also, as I tapped the abacus and reported the accounts one by one, Fu Jing's face gradually turned as red as a pig's liver. Before I could finish, he slammed his palm on the table. "Shen Li, you're so cunning. You said you liked me, but all the while you were secretly keeping accounts behind my back." I put down the abacus and looked at him innocently. "I'm a merchant, keeping accounts is a habit. Besides, didn't you always promise that every tael of silver you spent on me would be repaid tenfold in the future? I won't ask for tenfold now, just principal plus interest. 50,000 taels will be enough." He was dumbfounded, his lips trembling for a long time before he could speak. 50,000 taels. How could it be that much? The accounts are clear and detailed, not even including the gifts I gave you and your family. I tapped the account book casually. "Oh, right. The red coral ornament and 10 glazed lamps your mother borrowed, the antique calligraphy and paintings your father took to admire, and the several sets of jewelry your sister borrowed from me. Please send those back to me as well." Hearing my words, Fu Jing's drinking companions were all stunned. "Miss Li, you're so wealthy." Everyone then turned to Fu Jing with disdainful glances. "Marquis Fu, that's really underhanded of you. Miss Li spent so much silver on you. And you got engaged to someone else without a word." Fu Jing flew into a rage, overturned the table, and shouted angrily, "Shen Li, you gave all those things voluntarily. Now you're using them to threaten me. You think this will make me marry you? Don't you know your own status? Are you worthy of being the mistress of a marquis's mansion?" If I had known Fu Jing was such a scoundrel who became arrogant once he got his way, I would never have saved him back then. But there's no if in life, filthy with the smell of copper, only caring about money, you can never enter polite society. Don't worry, our Jingyang Marquis mansion doesn't care for those things. We'll send them to you tomorrow." With that, he kicked over a stool angrily and stormed off with a flick of his sleeves. The waiter glanced at me. I shook my head faintly, signaling him not to act rashly. Fu Jing's drinking companions, now sober, touched their noses and slipped away in embarrassment. Only young Master Duan, who had spoken up for me earlier, stayed behind. He helped me straighten the tables and chairs, his face full of regret. Miss Li, Fu Jing acted unfairly in this matter, but commoners shouldn't quarrel with officials. As a young woman, how can you stand against powerful nobles like the Duke of Wei's mansion and the Marquis's mansion? I think you should make plans early and lay low for a while. I smiled at him. Thank you for the reminder, young Master Duan, but I believe that under the Emperor's rule, they wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Young Master Duan sighed, left an ingot of silver, and left, unsettled. He added one last thing, if you ever need help, you can come find me at the Chongqing Marquis mansion. The next day, Fu Jing's mother and sister really came to the door. The mother and daughter had completely abandoned their usual kindness. As soon as they arrived, they shouted loudly, driving away the guests in my inn. The waiter hurried to fetch me. When I arrived, a line of ferocious-looking servants was standing at the inn door. Inside the inn, 2 rows of maids and old women were also crowded. The commotion was quite impressive. Someone who didn't know better might have thought the Empress Dowager had arrived. It was hard to reconcile this scene with the Fu mother and daughter I had remembered. Truly, birds of a feather flocked together. When they were down on their luck, they looked kind and benevolent, but once they gained power, their eyes were practically stuck on the top of their heads. Seeing me blocked at the door by the servants, Fu Jing's sister Fu Yingying waved her hand arrogantly. Let her come in, as if the inn belonged to her family. When I walked in, Fu Yingying glanced at me disdainfully, snorted, and sat back down. I smiled and asked, Old madam, Miss Fu, have you come to return my things? Fu Yingying immediately flew into a rage. Why aren't you kneeling when you see us? Do you have no sense of etiquette? You never made me kneel before, I replied with a smile. That was before. Now our Fu family is a Marquis's mansion again. In a few more days, my mother will be granted the title of first-class imperial consort. You're a lowly merchant, you must kneel when you see us. Don't you understand etiquette? Fu Yingying was extremely arrogant, yet not long ago, she had been following me around, calling me sister repeatedly, just to beg me to buy her a new dress. But the title hasn't been granted yet, has it? Until then, you're still commoners. Why should I kneel? I sat down with a smile. Not taking them seriously at all, Fu Yingying was so angry she couldn't speak. She had to act coquettishly to her mother. Mother, you must teach her a lesson. She's so arrogant and rude. Seeing her daughter defeated, old Madame Fu held her back, then put on a fake smile. Li, you know I've always cared about you. Oh, so she's here to play the good cop today. Yingying is young and speaks without thinking. Don't lower yourself to her level. I took a sip of tea with a smile. Don't worry, old madam, if a dog bites me, I won't bite back. Her face changed. After a moment's thought, she forcibly suppressed her anger and squeezed out an ugly smile. Li, I know you're angry. The Fu family owes you an apology, but you must understand how hard it was for Jing'er to get where he is today. Without the Duke of Wei's support, when would the Fu family ever rise again? I know better than anyone how good you've been to Jing, since you like him so much. You surely don't want to hinder his future, do you? Before I came here, I discussed it with Jing. After he marries the Duke of Wei's daughter, in a year or so, he'll take you into the mansion as a concubine. I asked curiously, take me into the mansion? Has Daqin's law changed, allowing men to marry 2 wives? You want to be the legal wife, Shen Li. You're delusional. Being allowed to be a concubine in a Marquis's mansion is already a blessing you've earned over 10 lifetimes. Fu Yingying stood up excitedly. In contrast, the old woman was much calmer. She didn't scold Fu Yingying, but smiled at me. Li, titles don't matter. As long as you give birth to a son or daughter in the future, the Fu family will never treat you badly. If you have a promising son who enters the court as an official one day, he can even earn you a title of honor. One should look far ahead, not get stuck on trivial gains and losses in the present. She pretended to be acting in my best interest, yet made no attempt to hide her disdain for my status. But I remember, old madam, you once told me that you would send 3 matchmakers and 6 messengers, and carry me to the mansion in an 8-person sedan chair as a proper wife. Of course, I was only joking. Even if such a family offered me mountains of gold and silver, I would never marry into it. Old Madame Fu's face finally stiffened, her voice turned cold. Shen Li, if you talk like this, you're being ungrateful. I've given you a way out. If you don't take it now, when the way is gone, you'll have no choice. Fu Yingying, finally getting a chance to speak again, ordered arrogantly, Mother, I told you not to be nice to her. People of her lowly sort only take advantage of kindness. With our family's status now, it would be easy to kill her. Why waste words on her? Old Madame Fu turned to me and asked, Shen Li, I'll ask you one last time. Will you wait to be my son's concubine, or will you be enemies with our Jingyang Marquis mansion? I remained calm. I neither want to be your son's concubine nor your enemy. I only want you to return what you owe me. Old Madame Fu snorted coldly. You refuse a kind offer and insist on trouble. Then I won't waste any more breath on you. Yingying, let's go. She raised her hand like an empress dowager, letting the maids help her up. Fu Yingying glared at me with a ferocious smile. Shen Li, good luck fending for yourself. I waited until they reached the door before asking, if the Duke of Wei finds out that your family is so ungrateful and shameless, do you think he'll still be willing to form an alliance with you? Old Madame Fu's back tensed. She turned around and asked, are you threatening us? I smiled. Dare not. You'd better think carefully about what's more important. If she didn't want to save face, I wouldn't give her any either. The wrinkles on old Madame Fu's face turned sharp. Her eyes swept over me with almost vicious intent before she finally said, Shen Li, there's a saying, you can't reason with a fool who's doomed to die. You'd better watch your step. With that, she stormed off in anger. That night, just as I was about to close the inn, a group of ferocious-looking men arrived. As soon as they walked in, they shouted loudly, bring out your best wine and meat, quick, we're starving. I was settling accounts at the counter. The waiter went over to apologize. I'm sorry, the kitchen has already put out the fire and we're out of meat. Could you gentlemen try another place? Those men suddenly flew into a rage. They overturned the table, grabbed the waiter, and started beating him. Damn it! How dare you look down on us? You run an inn and don't have food to serve guests. If you can't run it properly, close it down. Brothers, smash the place. At his command, the men picked up stools and began smashing everything in the inn randomly. Several jars of wine placed by the counter were all shattered. They even walked toward me with ferocious smiles, slamming their fists hard on the counter. The little lady is quite pretty. Why don't you come play with us for a while? Serve us well, and we'll spare you tonight. I smiled and said, sure, why don't you gentlemen wait in the backyard? I'll come as soon as I finish settling the accounts. They were stunned, not expecting me to agree so readily. Then they laughed loudly. What a slut. Hurry up then, we don't have much patience. I nodded with a smile. Don't worry, I'll be right there. As soon as they left, I stepped out from behind the counter and helped the waiter up. Shuangxi, are you okay? I'm fine, he said, rubbing his injured arm and looking at me with grievance. Sister, what do we do now? I smiled and said, don't be afraid, go get the wine from the cabinet. He nodded. I took the wine and headed to the backyard. As soon as the men saw me, they grinned maliciously. I poured each of them a cup of wine and said, this pot of wine is my most prized collection. Let me toast you gentlemen first. They let their guard down completely. The aroma of the wine made their mouths water. After drinking it, they all felt dizzy and collapsed to the ground one by one. I told the waiter to tie them up, fasten them to an ox cart, and send them to the Duke of Wei's mansion. Originally, I had no intention of ruining Fu Jing's plans. If his heart was no longer with me, I would let him go. But the Fu family had truly disgusted me, so I had no choice but to repay the favor. Unexpectedly, the first person to come looking for me was Song Qingyao, the daughter of the Duke of Wei. She even sent me a formal invitation to Sifangzhai, the most upscale tea house in the capital. I went, hoping to prevent an innocent girl from jumping into a pit of fire, but the moment I opened the door, I saw Fu Jing. He looked at me and smiled, his expression full of contempt and pride. Song Qingyao smiled and gestured for me to come in, then said to Fu Jing, Jing, go buy me some chestnut pastries first. Come back to pick me up later. All right. Fu Jing smiled at her affectionately. After Fu Jing left, Song Qingyao sat there, sizing me up from head to toe for a long time before speaking with a half-smile. Miss Shen is indeed someone who can run a restaurant alone. You have some extraordinary abilities. Her words sounded like praise. But her tone was filled with disdain. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her quietly. She gently picked up her teacup, took a sip, and continued, Jing has told me everything about you too. Those men last night weren't sent by Jing, don't misunderstand him. It was Ying who was afraid you'd pester Jing. So she sent them to scare you. I've already scolded her. She's just a child who doesn't know any better. Don't lower yourself to her level. In the future, as her sister-in-law, I'll teach her well. I've brought all the things the Fu family took from you. You can take them later. Here's 10,000 taels of silver, as personal compensation from me. I only have one request. Leave the capital within 3 days, and never come back. I still didn't speak. Continuing to watch her declare her dominance, she felt uncomfortable under my gaze and couldn't help asking, Why are you looking at me like that? I smiled and said, I'm just curious. How can a noble young lady like you have the audacity to say such shameless things? Since you know about my relationship with Fu Jing, you should understand that this man is ungrateful and not a good person. If you insist on forcing yourself to accept this rotten deal, I won't fight you for him. But he owes me 50,000 taels. Yet you only offer 10,000 and demand that I leave the capital. Who do you think you are? The smile on her face disappeared instantly. Her eyes turned much colder and sharper as she looked at me. Sure enough, this Miss Song, who could get along with Fu Jing, was no naive, innocent white lotus. She curled her lips in disdain, finally revealing her true arrogance. She took back the 10,000 tael banknote and said, No wonder Jing and Ying said you're an ungrateful fool. Since you refused to take the kindness offered, I don't need to be polite to you anymore. I was the one who sent those men last night. It was just a warning, so I didn't let them go too far. But next time, it might not be the same. If you're still in the capital in 3 days, she grinned maliciously. I can't guarantee what will happen. For my Duke of Wei's mansion, killing someone like you is no different from stepping on an ant. With that, she stood up and ordered, Take those things down to Miss Shen. The maids and old women scrambled to throw a pile of brocade boxes down from the 2nd floor. Except for a few scrolls of calligraphy and paintings, everything else was fragile. They shattered into pieces with a series of crashes. The women laughed wildly. Miss Shen, we're clumsy. Please don't mind. Song Qingyao threw me a contemptuous glance with a smile. She seemed certain that I couldn't do anything to her. After all, she thought I was just a common innkeeper. Helpless and at their mercy, I gently stroked the ring on my index finger and sighed softly. I had given them a chance, but they insisted on provoking me. I shouted out the window, a Jew, return to the palace. When my brother, the emperor, saw me, his face was full of anger. That damned Fu Jing, pass my edict. Strip Fu Jing of his title and exile his entire family. Before he could finish, I smiled and said, Brother, don't be like that. Where's the fun in that? The emperor asked angrily, Ali, you're my only sister, the grand princess in charge of the national treasury. How could you let someone bully you like this? I played with my ring casually. Do you think I'd let someone bully me? My birthday is coming soon. Brother, make an exception and hold a birthday banquet for me." The emperor's face lit up with surprise. "You're willing to reveal your identity publicly?" I smiled. "Brother, didn't you say all the civil and military officials are curious about me? Then let's satisfy their curiosity. I had been sent out of the palace at birth and raised among commoners. Thanks to my exceptional business acumen, I had become a wealthy merchant by the age of 13. Later, with my enormous financial power, I helped my brother defeat numerous competitors and ascend the throne. In return, the emperor entrusted both the national treasury and the imperial private treasury to my management. I was naturally unrestrained and cherished my freedom, so I had never appeared in public. The world only knew that the current emperor had a younger sister, the Taihe Grand Princess, who controlled the Da Jing dynasty's treasury. All the civil and military officials were curious about me, but except for a few close to the emperor, no one had ever seen me. 3 years ago, I found Fu Jing, who had been seriously injured. At that time, his family had just fallen on hard times. Overnight, he had gone from a marquis's son to the child of a convicted criminal. Yet he had not despaired. Amidst ridicule and oppression, he persisted in studying and practicing martial arts, determined to rise again through his own efforts. His ambition and unyielding spirit had sparked a sense of mutual appreciation in me. My mother had never been favored by the emperor. My brother and I had endured hardships since childhood, fostering a desperate desire for power and wealth. I was in charge of accumulating wealth, while he seized power. Having climbed out of the mire ourselves, we felt a special affinity for those struggling to rise from adversity. I saved him once. He said he had no way to repay me and insisted on staying at the inn to work as my bodyguard. Every night, he would come to the inn and stay until it closed, leaving only after seeing the lights in my room go out. Several times when troublemakers came to the inn, he had stepped forward to protect me. Although I didn't need his protection, his sincerity had gradually moved me. I concealed my identity and got along with him. To protect his self-esteem, I only helped him secretly. When my brother learned that I was with Fu Jing, he had tried to persuade me, with his current status, he's not worthy of you. Among all the civil and military officials and noble families, you can choose anyone you want. Why must you choose Fu Jing? Then brother, why don't you elevate his status? My casual remark had stuck in my brother's mind. He gave Fu Jing the opportunity to suppress bandits in Yuju. I secretly sent men to follow him and help him achieve the greatest merit. When he returned to the capital, my brother restored his title as Marquis. Before he left for Yuju, he had sworn to me that he would propose marriage to me as soon as he came back. I had even struggled for a long time with how to confess my true identity to him. Unexpectedly, before I could be honest with him, he had climbed the high branch of the Duke of Wei's mansion. If he had only broken his promise, I wouldn't have bothered with him. But being ungrateful and even turning around to trample on me, then he had no right to blame me for being ruthless. As soon as the news spread that my brother was holding a birthday banquet for me, all the civil and military officials and noble families busied themselves. They racked their brains to find out my preferences, hoping to win my favor at the banquet. My brother even deliberately hinted that he would choose a consort for me. I had no such intention, but I didn't stop him. While I was waiting for the birthday banquet, something happened to my little inn again, on a dark, windy night. It was set on fire. If I hadn't already dismissed all the waiters, there would surely have been casualties. I asked a Jew, did the Fu family send someone to do this, or the Song family? A Jew replied, it was the Duke of Wei's mansion. The Fu family has just been restored to power. They don't have the ability or the courage to do this. I nodded. That old bastard, the Duke of Wei, he was like an old man celebrating his birthday, hanging himself, asking for death. Then I had no choice but to grant his wish. In the name of Shen Li, I sued both the Duke of Wei's mansion and the Jingyang Marquis mansion at the government office, but no one dared to accept the lawsuit. Clearly, the government office had already been bribed. When my brother heard about it, he was so angry that his face turned darker than the bottom of a pot. Under the emperor's rule, how dare such unjust things happen? I'll have these people skinned alive. I didn't seem nearly as angry. I said, brother, you've only been on the throne for 3 years. We can't rush to rectify official administration and cleanse the court. The emperor slammed his fist on the table angrily. If you weren't my sister, who would stand up for justice on your behalf? The thought that under my rule, there are people suffering such injustice and harm keeps me awake day and night. I was relieved to hear my brother have such an insight. That's why I've always chosen to hide my identity and stay among the people. At least I can see these injustices and grievances, and have the chance to report them to you. Brother, reminded by me, the emperor suddenly said, Ali, I want you to establish an agency specifically for inspecting the countryside. Let them be my eyes and ears. I had been thinking the same thing. It was a perfect coincidence. If you trust me, I'd be happy to help, I said with a smile. The emperor rolled his eyes at me. Ali, don't say such things to me. The only person I can trust in this world is you. I smiled again. I believed him, because he knew that I had no ambition for the imperial court. I just loved doing business and making money, enjoying the joy of earning gold by the day. On the day of the birthday banquet, I didn't leave with my brother. Instead, I arrived early at Chunghua Garden in the outskirts of the capital. It was still a long time before the banquet started, and there were few people in the garden. I was feeding the fish when someone walked over in surprise. Miss Li. I turned around and saw it was Fu Jing's drinking companion, young Master Duan of the Chongqing Marquis mansion. We had just exchanged a few polite words when Song Qingyao and Fu Jing arrived. They looked around as if searching for someone. When they saw me and young Master Duan, both of them looked shocked. Song Qingyao took Fu Jing's arm and walked over arrogantly. She said to young Master Duan, "Young Master Duan, you're too bold. How dare you bring such a lowly person to the princess's birthday banquet? Aren't you afraid of angering the princess and his majesty, bringing death to your Chongqing Marquis mansion?" Young Master Duan was slightly stunned and was about to explain, but I stopped him. He had never liked Fu Jing in the first place. He snorted coldly, then said to me, "Miss Li, don't be afraid. If we really meet the princess and his majesty, I will testify for you. Some people are ungrateful, turning their backs on others as soon as they gain power. They are the ones who truly deserve to die." Fu Jing's face darkened. He asked, "Brother Duan, what do you mean by this? Don't call me brother. Although I, Duan Jingrui, am not a gentleman, I will never act like a scoundrel." With that, he tried to pull me away, but Fu Jing stopped him firmly. "Where do you think you're taking her, Duan Jingrui? Are you going to be my enemy too?" Duan Jingrui was so angry he wanted to fight him, but I held him back. I smiled and asked Fu Jing, "Why are you so afraid?" Fu Jing let out a cold snort. "Afraid of you? What trouble can a mere innkeeper like you stir up? You keep calling me an innkeeper and a lowly commoner. Haven't you heard that even the Taihe Grand Princess came from a business background?" I was kind enough to remind him, but he refused to appreciate it, showing no attempt to hide his contempt. "Insolent! How dare you compare yourself to the princess?" Song Qingyao also threatened. "If your words reach the princess's ears, even 10 of your heads won't be enough to cut off." What did I say wrong? I'm just stating the facts. Why would the princess cut off my head? Although I loved keeping a low profile, I had never portrayed myself as a ruthless killer, Song Qingyao said mockingly. Typical of lowly people, completely lacking in etiquette and respect. It's not just that you compare yourself to the princess. Even talking about the princess like this is an insult. Shen Li, if you don't want to die, get out of here now. Otherwise, when the princess and his majesty arrive later, you'll surely die. I smiled and said, but I was invited as a guest. Why should I leave? Invited? Ha! How is that possible? Naturally, Fu Jing and Song Qingyao didn't believe me. Young Master Duan didn't speak, but there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. After all, in their eyes, someone of my status could never have received an invitation. Fu Jing asked, "Where's your invitation? Do you have one?" I really didn't have one. Who sends themselves an invitation to their own birthday banquet? No. He laughed. You dare to sneak into a place like this? You must be suicidal. As long as I expose you, not only will you die, but whoever brought you here will lose their head too. He deliberately glanced at Duan Jingrui threateningly. Brother Duan, for the sake of our friendship, I don't want to go too far. You'd better take her away now. Song Qingyao's eyes suddenly lit up. No, letting her leave like this is too easy on her. Shen Li, if you kneel down and kowtow to me a few times, I'll let you go. Fu Jing frowned slightly, but in the end, he didn't stop her. He had clearly forgotten the feeling of being bullied and forced to kneel when the Fu family fell on hard times. People are so forgetful. Duan Jingrui was furious. You two are the most despicable people I've ever met. Associating with people like you is the greatest stain of my life. With that, he pulled me to leave. I'd rather risk my life than let Miss Li be humiliated by you. Song Qingyao gave a malicious smile, then shouted loudly, "Someone, there's an assassin," although there weren't many people around yet. Her shout still attracted a lot of attention, especially from the Imperial Forest Guards at Chonghua Garden. A group of royal guards in silver armor surrounded us. Song Qingyao looked at me triumphantly, as if watching a dying person. It's her. She has no invitation and sneaked into Chonghua Garden. She must be up to no good, young Master Duan quickly explained. No, Miss Shen is a friend I brought here. He even lied to help me, taking the blame on himself voluntarily. Fu Jing stared at him in shock, clearly realizing that Duan Jingrui was risking his life for me. Then you're an accomplice. Your entire Chongqing Marquis mansion are accomplices. Song Qingyao shouted loudly. Duan Jingrui roared, Song Qingyao, have some shame. You stole Fu Jing, burned down Miss Shen's inn, and now you want to kill her. But Song Qingyao put on an innocent expression. Young Master Duan, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Jing and I grew up together. Our engagement was arranged by our parents and matchmakers. How is that stealing? She actually pretended to be innocent. Duan Jingrui turned to Fu Jing. Fu Jing, are you even a man? I know better than anyone how well Miss Shen has treated you over the years. You're so cold-hearted and vicious, aren't you afraid of divine retribution? Fu Jing's expression flickered with hesitation for a moment, then he said in an extremely cold voice, Brother Duan, I advise you to think about yourself. Neither you nor the Chongqing Marquis mansion can bear the crime of harboring an assassin. Duan Jingrui's face turned red, then white. Finally, he said, I don't believe there's no justice in this world. I don't believe His Majesty and the princess can't tell right from wrong. Then he looked at me firmly. Miss Shen, I'll accompany you to appeal to the Emperor. To be honest, I'm not someone who's easily moved. But at this moment, Duan Jingrui truly touched my heart. I was certain he didn't know my identity. Yet he had the courage to risk his life for me. It was truly rare. For the first time, I looked at Duan Jingrui carefully. He wasn't the kind of person who stunned people at first sight, but he had the demeanor of a gentleman, as pure and upright as jade, as elegant and handsome as pine and bamboo. Feeling my gaze, he became a little uncomfortable. He quickly let go of my hand. Miss Li, please forgive my rudeness. I acted impulsively. I shook my head with a smile. Thank you. Young Master Duan, you will be rewarded for this. Song Qingyao let out a cold laugh. Rewarded? Ha! He should consider himself lucky if he doesn't lose his head because of you. The Imperial Forest Guards looked at each other, then turned to me, waiting for my signal. The guards in charge of Chunghua Garden today were all confidants of my brother and me. Naturally, they recognized me. Since I didn't speak, they didn't know whether to reveal my identity. Whispers of doubt filled the air around us. Who is she? I recognize her. She's the female owner of Chen Beiju, Marquis Fu's lover. No wonder. TSK. She's so bold to cause trouble here. I heard the Song family burned down her inn, and she couldn't get justice from the officials. She probably sneaked in to appeal to the emperor. This is going to be interesting. Fu Jing and Song Qingyao are too cruel, bullying her like this. But sneaking into Chunghua Garden was a terrible mistake, ruining the princess's birthday banquet. She's suicidal. More and more people gathered to watch. As the crowd drew closer, pointing and whispering, Song Qingyao began to lose face. Foolishly, she shouted at the Imperial Forest Guards, "Why aren't you taking action yet?" Fu Jing had quietly approached me. He said in a voice only I could hear, "I warned you not to pester me. Now, no one can save you, Shen Li. You'll never be able to fit into the world of nobles. I didn't marry you for your own good. You simply don't understand the rules of the noble game." I gave him a meaningful smile. "Should I thank you then?" There was a hint of regret in his eyes. "If you had listened to me, you wouldn't have ended up like this." Just then, a majestic voice boomed. "Who dares to cause trouble at the princess's birthday banquet? Long live His Majesty! Long live! Long live! Long live!" The first person to see the emperor quickly knelt down and kowtowed. Soon, the entire garden was filled with kneeling people. Only I slightly bent my knees and called out clearly, "Brother." Silence fell. Only a few scattered gasps could be heard. Song Qingyao suddenly shouted, "Shen Li, are you crazy?" Then she turned to the emperor, "Your Majesty, it's this woman who sneaked in, intending to disrupt the princess's birthday banquet. Please punish her severely." The emperor looked at her with eyes as sharp as cold blades. Song Qingyao's face turned deathly pale in an instant. The emperor walked toward me, helped me up, then turned to order the Imperial Forest Guards. "Did you all stand idle while the princess was insulted? Drag these two scoundrels away and beat them to death with wooden rods." Song Qingyao and Fu Jing's eyes widened simultaneously. Fu Jing collapsed to the ground in disbelief. "Shen Li, you." I nodded at him with a smile and said, "My pet name is Ali. Shen is my mother's maiden name. I remember telling you that I take my mother's surname. You should know that Empress Shen's maiden name was also Shen." His face turned as white as a sheet, then his eyes reddened. "But you never said you were. Does who I am matter?" I asked him. "Just because I'm Shen Li, I can be bullied and toyed with at will. Is that it?" Fu Jing's lips trembled a few times, but in the end, he didn't dare say another word. A pool of yellow liquid suddenly soaked the ground beneath Song Qingyao, emitting a foul stench. The once arrogant and domineering Miss Song had actually wet herself out of fear. "It's impossible, impossible. Liar. How could Shen Li be the princess? How could she be the princess?" The emperor waved his hand in disgust. "Drag her away, drag them both away." Just then, the Duke of Wei and his wife arrived. They knelt weeping before the emperor and me. "Your Majesty, Princess, this minister has failed to teach his daughter properly. My crime deserves death. But my daughter is only young and ignorant, which is why she offended the princess. Her crime does not merit death." When Song Qingyao saw her parents, she seemed to regain her senses. She threw herself into her mother's arms and wailed loudly. "Mother, save me." The Duchess of Wei, Princess Mingyu, was technically my aunt. She hugged Song Qingyao tightly and comforted her. "Yao Yao, don't be afraid. Mother is here. No one dares to kill you." With that, she turned to the emperor and me. "Your Majesty, what heinous crime has Yao Yao committed that you would order her beaten to death?" The emperor was furious. She dared to insult the her grand princess. Does that not deserve death? They say ignorance is innocence. Yao Yao did not know this was the Taihe Grand Princess beforehand. If there was any offense, it was unintentional. Your Majesty, arbitrarily ordering executions will not convince the people. The emperor was left tongue-tied. I smiled faintly and said, Princess Mingyu, you misunderstand. My brother did not order Miss Song's execution by rod. Thinking I had backed down, she became even more arrogant. I thought His Majesty was not a tyrant who kills without distinction. In that case, I will take Yao Yao back. We beg forgiveness for the Duke of Wei's mansion's rudeness at the princess's birthday banquet. With that, she prepared to leave with her daughter. The emperor's face turned livid. He whispered to me, Ali, I must avenge this humiliation for you, even if I am branded a tyrant. I do not care. He did not want me to swallow my anger. Fortunately, I had no intention of doing so. I smiled and spoke again. Wait, Princess Mingyu. I did not say you could leave. She turned around, staring at me angrily. What more does the Taihe princess wish to say? I smiled and said, my brother did not order Song Qingyao's execution by rod. Instead, he intends to execute the entire Song family, including you. My words shocked everyone present. Princess Mingyue's face turned ashen. She gritted her teeth and said, how dare you? I am a princess, and the Duke of Wei's mansion is a meritorious family. How dare you kill us at will? I waved my hand. A Jew stepped forward from the corner, holding a thick stack of papers. I took them and unfolded them one by one, reading aloud. In the 2nd year of day, the eldest son of the Duke of Wei abducted the common girl Luo. When Luo refused, the Duke of Wei's mansion massacred her entire family of 18. In the 3rd year of day, Song Qingyao sent men to set fire to the inn on Tianshui Street, then silenced the witnesses. To cover up the crime, the Duke of Wei's mansion bribed Prefect Ma Yingqiu with 30,000 taels of silver. In the early years of day, Song Nanshan, Duke of Wei, stationed 8,000 private soldiers at Shijiao Mountain, hoarded 10,000 sets of armor, and forged over 30,000 weapons. In the 2nd year of day, the Duke of Wei embezzled 2 million taels of military funds in the name of suppressing bandits, but instead nurtured bandits in Yuju to consolidate his power. In the 2nd year of day, when the Duke of Wei's plot to rebel was exposed, Princess Mingyu personally killed her daughter-in-law Lady Lin and 3 of the Duke's concubines. Every time I finished reading a charge, exclamations erupted around us. The 3 members of the Song family had lost all color in their faces. You're spouting nonsense. None of this is true, absolutely not. The Duke of Wei shouted frantically. Princess Mingyu also began to wail, frame up. It's a frame-up. Is this because Yao Yao got engaged to Fu Jing and stole your beloved? As the Grand Princess of the Great Jing dynasty, you are so petty and narrow-minded. You bring shame to the royal family. Even at this moment, she still dared to turn the tables on me. But the emperor, reading the evidence a Jew presented, grew darker and darker in the face. I smiled and uttered a few words. Shijiao Mountain, Langya Cave, if I'm not mistaken. Your son is not here today because he received word of strangers appearing at Shijiao Mountain and rushed to deal with it. Is he? Unfortunately, it's too late. At this hour, the men I sent should have completely wiped out Shijiao Mountain. Early tomorrow morning, your son and the lackeys of your mansion will be escorted to the capital. Cold sweat poured down the Duke of Wei's forehead. He trembled violently, like a withered leaf in the wind. Princess Mingyu shook her head. You blame yourselves for sending people to cause trouble at my inn. I drugged those men, and they told me everything. It was all perfectly hidden, even my brother didn't notice. But to stand up for your daughter, you leaked the news. TSK, Princess Mingyu. Isn't this what they call heaven's net is wide? But it lets nothing slip through. I had deliberately sent those men back to avoid alerting the enemy. They were so focused on quarreling with me that they didn't realize I had already sent someone to raid their den. Fu Jing's face also turned as red as a pig's liver. He knew the heinous crime the Duke of Wei had committed, having just formed an alliance with the Song family through marriage. He was afraid he would be implicated. Originally, for the mistakes he had made, the worst punishment would be the revocation of his title and demotion to a commoner. Even if he died, he would die alone. But now, it was likely that his entire family would not escape. He suddenly regretted it bitterly. Ali, I know I was wrong. Can you spare me, considering our 3 years together? Considering what? I asked with a smile. Considering your betrayal, or your attempt to kill me. I didn't do it. It was all the Song family's doing. Fu Jing tried to distance himself. Scowled.
Then don't kill him, the emperor asked. Do you still feel sorry for him? No, for someone like Fu Jing, the cruelest punishment isn't death. It's to drag him down from the clouds, completely cut off his hope of climbing back up, and let him sink into the mire forever. He still hasn't repaid his debt to me. Exile him to the northern frontier to be a slave to the armor-bearing soldiers that will settle his debt. This was far more satisfying to me than killing Fu Jing. The emperor couldn't help shivering. You're still the ruthless one. But with a stroke of his brush, the emperor drafted the imperial edict. The entire Fu family, more than 20 people, were all punished to become military slaves. The next time I saw Fu Jing, he was acting as a stepping stone for a burly general to mount his horse. When he saw me, his body trembled, causing the general to fall. This earned him a severe whipping. Fu Jing's clothes were torn to shreds by the whip. Yet he still stared at me eagerly. The general didn't recognize me. Seeing Fu Jing staring at me constantly, he whipped him even harder. Scoundrel, who allowed you to stare at this young lady? Finally, Fu Jing couldn't bear it any longer. He grabbed the general's whip and shouted at me. Ali, hasn't my punishment been enough? I know you've never forgotten me. I really do know I was wrong. Forgive me. The general was stunned for a moment, then kicked him hard. Have you lost your mind? Ignoring the beating, Fu Jing scrambled to my feet and blocked my path. Ali, look at me. I can't take this anymore. Do you really want to watch me die? The general looked confused and asked, Young lady, do you know him? I shook my head. No. Upon hearing this, the general quickly apologized to me. This lowly slave must be crazy for offending you. Young lady, please forgive me. With that, he ordered his men to drag Fu Jing away. Fu Jing shouted at me hysterically, Ali, don't ignore me. I don't believe you really don't care about me anymore. Ali, I truly loved you. I ignored him completely and walked straight into the tea house, where Duan Jingrui came out to greet me. He stared at Fu Jing for a long time, then finally couldn't help asking, Ali, did you recognize him just now? Who? I asked with a smile. Duan Jingrui scratched his head. Fu Jing. I looked surprised. Him? I really didn't recognize him. He let out a laugh, then looked a little uneasy. Ali, I was so afraid you'd soften your heart. Soften my heart. Someone who had participated in the battle for the throne since her teens, how could she possibly be soft-hearted? Only a silly guy like Duan Jingrui, even after learning my identity, still saw me as that kind and gentle Miss Ali. I deliberately asked him, Are you afraid I'll get back together with Fu Jing? He nodded, then quickly explained, If you still can't let him go, I naturally wouldn't dare stop you. I'm just afraid he'll betray you again and break your heart. I covered my mouth and laughed. You really wouldn't stop me. He looked a little anxious. I want to stop you. But I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to. You fool. I tapped his forehead lightly. Brother said he'll choose an auspicious date to betroth you to me. But you have to be prepared. Being my consort means you can't inherit your title, and you'll probably never have the chance to achieve meritorious deeds. His face lit up with overwhelming joy, an expression of disbelief. Ali, he held my hand, too excited to speak. I don't want anything. No, wait, I want nothing except you. Ali, are you really willing? I nodded with a smile. Willing? Why not? I never planned to spend my life alone. I still hoped for a sincere and passionate relationship, someone to be with day and night, just like when I had unhesitatingly chosen Fu Jing, the down-on-his-luck Marquis's son. Back then, for no other reason, simply because I liked him, I had truly loved Fu Jing, and everything I did for him was voluntary. But I could give my sincerity freely, and take it back just as easily, from the moment Fu Jing said, "Someone of her market background, how could she be worthy of entering my marquis's mansion?" He had died in my heart. I had always been a decisive person when it came to love and hate. I never dragged my feet. Later, I heard that Fu Jing really did die. They said he had stolen a glazed hairpin from his master and was beaten to death for it. He had clung tightly to that hairpin until his last breath, refusing to let go. When a Jew brought the hairpin back to me, there was still a faint trace of dried blood on it. "Bury it with him," I said. It was a gift he had given me, and I had worn it for 3 years. Then, when we broke up, I had returned it to him, I think for Fu Jing. What he had fought to protect until his death was not the hairpin, nor the 3 years of friendship we had shared. It was the dream of achieving great success and enjoying a lifetime of glory and prosperity that he had once been so close to. I had no intention of taking the hairpin back, just as I would never want a man